Hey there, this is Mr. Icarus, and welcome to yet another edition of Doom Mod Madness. This time round, we are checking out a gameplay mod by the name of Treasure Tech. Much like the name implies, it's a mod that is chiefly concerned with the acquisition of treasure. As for the tech, that will be in reference to the wonderful array of weapons and abilities that you have at your disposal in order to make that acquisition go a little bit more smoothly. Ain't gonna lie, from the outset, this mod makes you feel quite OP, and that even extends to the likes of your fists, which not only can knock enemies out, but allow you to hoist them above your head and lob them at the demonic brethren. That said, not all of them are chuckable at first, but that's something I'll talk a little bit more about further on down the line. First things first, let's talk about the guns. First up is the Fortune Finder Tech Handgun. This is a pretty big and beefy starting pistol that you won't be forgetting about anytime soon, and that's largely on account of it being phenomenally powerful even in primary fire, and also featuring a tremendously entertaining ult that consolidates all bullets in the mag, provided it's full, into one big beefy bullet that bobs big baddies in the bonds. Next up we have the Kuma 10-gauge combat shotgun. I have various strong feelings about this weapon, most of them good, some of them tingling. Any further elaboration on that front will probably get my channel flagged for indecency. Nonetheless, this is a tremendously satisfying weapon to wield. The primary fire delivers on the boom, it delivers on the reload animation, and then with regards to the alt fires, you can pump the handle a second time to deliver a dual burst, and pump it again to get yourself an explosive shell. Honestly, what's not to love? The Strike Commando machine gun is quite possibly one of the most normal weapons that you'll acquire here during the course of Treasure Tech, but that by no means makes it a dull weapon to use. It features a reassuringly satisfying primary fire, and is backed up with a secondary that lets off a rapid fire burst, and features quite a heavy amount of recoil. The kicker with that being that if you manage to control it and stay on aim, the final round in that burst volley will deal a greater amount of damage. As for the Wild Hunter harpoon gun, I'd say that this is quite possibly the most interesting weapon to use in Treasure Tech, if only for the fact that on its own it's actually kinda weak, but when combined with a move such as shoulder tackle, the detonation is much more robust, as you can clearly see with the footage here. And it's not just the shoulder charge that can trigger that detonation either. You can trigger it with the point-blank bonus damage on the Kuma shotgun. There's a whole variety of ways to do it, but for me, personally, I find the shoulder charge is the most direct route to making things go splody bye-bye. And mercifully, there is no self-damage here when it comes to the explosion from that harpoon, so yeah, 2 thumbs up from me, but that said, it's a risky weapon to use. It features a tremendously long reload animation, and you really gotta get used to the rhythm of firing it and detonating it, and like I say, getting the most bang for your buck. Speaking of bang for your buck, we also have the Pop Rock handheld launcher. Its primary fire is kind of like a weaker rocket launcher, which can be charged for up to 2 additional shots, which get more powerful with each extra rocket, but really, the alt fire is most certainly where it's at for me. Letting off a comedy round bomb with a timed fuse, you can leave it where it is, it will eventually explode, but for me, to get the most out of it, you usually have to detonate it early, which can be done by targeting it with any other weapon. If you want to get a little bit more hands-on, you can in fact pick up the bomb, which will disable the fuse and allow you to just add that personal touch when blowing up enemy faces. If there is one thing, and one thing only, you need to know about the Hornet, it is the simple fact that this weapon shoots bees. No, not hornets, actually bees. I should know, I checked the goddamn manual. Also, the fact that the fire rate of this baby increases the longer you keep your momentum up, as evidenced by a bar on the lower right-hand side. You can get it up to 4, but that one requires you to take advantage of some of the other movement mechanics here, such as the shoulder charge, to get that extra bit of bee-spitting speed up to snuff. This also works with the alt fire, which is basically a rapid-fire bee railgun, which is just friggin' great, and I've also got to give additional props for the downright wonderful weapon animations going on with this. It's just effortlessly cool looking. Continuing the bee theme, we also have the portable mechanized beezer, and all you really need to know about this one is that it launches an entire beehive, which then explodes continuously, because as you know, that's what bees do, and can quite handily take out the likes of a spider mastermind in one shot. So yeah, not too shabby, but as with most weapons here in Treasure Tech, the Beezer also features an intriguing alt-fire. This will be of utmost interest to any of you out there if you're wondering if there's a weapon that could conceivably take out a cyber demon in a single shot, and I'm delighted to tell you that eventually, provided I didn't take too many rockets to the face and miss my shot, that yes, the Pile Bunker Shot alt does in fact eviscerate cyber demons. Now, for those of you out there that might think that that ability is a touch tad OP, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong, but I am in fact going to tell you that once you've shot your shot, you will have to do a fair amount of chucking of enemies against other enemies and using various alt fires in order to charge that pile bunker gauge back to maximum. You can half charge it, but that's not going to one-shot a cyber demon, and let's face it, with a weapon like that, you might as well go the whole hog. As I hinted at earlier in this video, the guns are not the be-all and end-all of Treasure Tech, and only form part of what makes this mod so satisfying to play. The other side of the equation here is, of course, the abilities. One of the first you'll get to grips with is, of course, the throwing mechanic, which at first requires you to stun your enemies, usually done with a few 1-2 punches to the face, whereupon they'll be stunned, you can pick them up, and then throw them at any other enemy. Now, happily, this ability can actually be upgraded. At first, you'll be restricted to a certain subset of enemies with regards to what you can pick up and throw, but with enough acquisition of treasure, you can then spend it in the shop, upgrade your throw, and then get busy picking up progressively chunkier enemies. Sadly, from my experience so far, this does not mean you can pick up a cyber demon or a spider mastermind. That, I imagine, would probably require a little bit too much treasure to be worth the hassle. However, you can indeed pick up and throw everything up to and including an archvile. Have I mentioned the speedy punching? You can charge up speedy punching by regular punching. It's great. If, however, there is a nitpick that I'd have to bring to bear against the throwing mechanic here in Treasure Tech, and bear in mind it is very much a nitpick, it would be that despite the novelty of being able to upgrade and throw progressively bigger and tougher enemies, it's that it feels kinda samey after a while. I don't know why, but I feel like I was just secretly hoping for bigger, tougher to throw enemies to have more interesting effects when actually thrown, such as, I don't know, a flame pillar on impact when throwing an archvile, that kind of stuff. But like I say, nitpick, and it's more than made up for by the fact that throwing enemies is not the only thing you can do here. You can throw various other items, including the previously witnessed alt-fire bomb from the pop rock launcher. You can also pick up and throw explosive barrels, and in probably one of the biggest "oh, that's cool as shit" moments when I actually figured it out, you can pick up the alt-fired bullet from the pistol and launch it at enemies all over again. I have to admit, the ability to pick up and throw things outside of enemies did get my mind racing ever so slightly with regards to possibilities. I just can't help but think of a mod that takes that idea and runs with it and allows you to pick up and throw literally everything. So yeah, I think it's safe to say that I quite like Treasure Tech. I really like Treasure Tech. This is a mod where the component pieces just seem to come together beautifully. None of these things feel extraneous or tacked on. They all feel like they all interweave, and that's specifically talking about the way the weapons operate and the abilities that you have that you can chain with said weapons. It's just really well thought out and tremendously satisfying to play around with. I mean, sure, at first it might feel a little weird to have to go through a few additional steps to make certain weapons truly effective, but once it clicks, it really does click. And then, of course, there is the aesthetic. We've got some delightfully cartoony elements for the head-up display, my favorite aspect of which, of course, is Treasure Guy's status head, which has some rather expressive faces despite being a visor. It recalls that one comic I saw where they basically point out that Sonic just has one gargantuan eyeball, but thankfully, as you take damage here, it does reveal there is a face beneath the mask, and not just some sentient blue orb. Anyway, less about terrifying spheres and more about the unique stylings of Treasure Tech. And nowhere do those stylings feel more at home than during the course of this here custom tutorial level. If it's not already apparent by this point, you'll be intrigued to discover that Treasure Tech owes a significant inspirational debt to a game by the name of Wario Land 4. This was a particular favorite of mine. Still is, to be honest, when it comes to the list of the best games available for the GBA, and in my opinion, this just thoroughly nails the vibe. It is right on the money, and quite frankly, a wonderful way to introduce players to the core mechanics in Treasure Tech. If there is a significant downside, however, to the inclusion of this level in the current build of Treasure Tech, it's that it sets the bar for level synergy, both in terms of visuals and gameplay, so high that you can't help but be disappointed once you finish it and get kicked out to either the vanilla Doom 2 map set or maybe another custom map set that just doesn't quite visually mesh or take full advantage of that suite of abilities. I mean, don't get me wrong, it still plays like a dream. I would heavily recommend this with map sets such as Epic, for example, but I can't help but just crave more of this style of level, and that, dear viewer, is where I am happy to tell you that more levels are indeed in the works. In fact, if the cryptic messages of author Ultra64 are to be believed, this will indeed at some point get its own full-fledged campaign, and oh boy, there is no disguising my excitement for that particular prospect. I can tell you with 100% certainty that whenever that gets released, I will be playing the ever-loving shit out of it. Get fucked. I'm a box. Get wrecked. Oh shit, everyone's still here. So yeah, I would heavily recommend Treasure Tech if you're in the mood for a meaty feeling, just extremely well polished and tremendously satisfying gameplay mod, then Treasure Tech is assuredly the place to be. As I said before, you might need to spend a little bit of time acclimatizing yourself to the quirks of various weapons and how to use them in conjunction with other abilities, but if you ever feel lost on that front, I'll tell you what I was told by the creator of it, and that's read the fucking manual. And what a manual it is! I don't think I could close out this video without at least giving a nod to this exhaustively detailed and pleasingly illustrated manual that comes part and parcel of this mod. Flick through this thing, and before you know it, you will be an expert in shoulder charging your way into danger, butt bouncing your way to a pile of dead corpses, and just generally blasting your way to a small fortune in treasure. So yeah, if all of that interests you, guess what? The link, as usual, is in the description below. Have fun, I'm pretty sure you will. And while I'm at it, I might as well give a great big thank you to my wonderful patrons over on Patreon. Thank you so very much for supporting the channel and for helping to make content like this possible. If you're interested in lending a hand yourself, maybe you'd like to see your name in the credits, maybe you'd like to gain early access to my videos before anyone else, well, if that's the case, you'll find the link to my Patreon page also in the description below. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Feel free to let me know what you thought in the comments, and feel free to suggest any mods you'd like to see me cover in future editions of Doom Mod Madness. If you'd like to see a more long-form take of my experience with Treasure Tech, also feel free to pop over to my Twitch channel, link also in the description, and you'll get a little bit of insight into where some of this footage came from. But until next time, this has been Mr. Icarus. Thank you very much for watching. Icarus out.